Alright, guys. I think this will be part 3 of this. As you can see, I am playing on an emulator. I mean, you know, on a different emulator from the other one. I was playing on Azahar, but I had to transfer over to this one because the other emulator was giving me problems with fishing. But I was able to fix the problem on Citra. Now, I have been able to fish, but it requires the Welcome Luxury mod, and I want to play that game on, on my own, I want to play the game normally using that mod, so we're just gonna go vanilla for the challenge. I want to stick to using my actual normal regular save for the mod, so yeah. But hopefully we should be able to fish now. And I did check off screen, I didn't do anything, but I did. Matter of fact, we're gonna change the date over to after 4, so Streamfish can come. Don't know if we're gonna get one in this episode, but I do want to get it out of the way when I can, before I move on to a different time of year. But yeah, like I said, I originally was having issues with fishing on this emulator as well, but I was able to fix it. So hopefully we should be okay. And then, yeah, I did check to make sure my data was transferred, and it was. As you can see, I still have everything from the previous episodes. Alright. Now, for some reason, I was able to catch that really tiny fish. It's called the bitterling. I believe it was, the winter tiny fish in the river. Chances are it's a bitterling. Alright, yeah, I think I left my tools on the ground. Yep. We only need... We don't need to mine the wallpaper or the pitfall seed. Alright, let's try to do some fishing. I want to see if I can finally fish. Oh my god. I hate it when the villagers can just move anywhere in this game. They move into some of the most atrocious spots. Luckily, in New Leaf, or I mean in New Horizons, we don't have to worry about that shit. Because it gets annoying when they move, like, in front of, like, buildings, or in front of, like, in your normal walkway. I might have to use the save editor. Don't worry, I'm not going to use it to cheat this challenge. I'm just going to use it to move houses occasionally. Oh my goodness! Put your... Ugh. Can you please? Okay, good. Yep, the bitterling. Alright. Well, we finally caught the bitterling. That's a good sign. I'm probably just gonna sell all this stuff. I don't need it. I'm not donating it. This isn't a museum challenge. This is just a catch everything challenge. If, we're not gonna lose it if we just sell it. As long as we catch it, we're good. That's all we need to do. Now, when we do a museum challenge later on down the road, then yes, I am gonna need to be more careful with my stuff, but... for now, we can just sell to our heart's content. I might do some diving today. I want to try to get a scallop. Maybe summon Pascal if possible. He's not a part of the challenge, but it will still be a good bonus. Alright, good. Now, here's some of the biggest things we will need to catch. Okay, yep, the stringfish. And I think we still need to catch some crabs. Okay, the snow crab, and we caught the horsehair crab. So, we are going to need to catch the red king crab at some point. We can... the red king crab, I believe, is, it's a winter crab. I'm not really sure. I don't know the exact range of, the exact time frame they're out for, but I think it's from November to March. So we can either try to catch one now, or we can wait till March, because we will have to go to March for the spider crab anyway. Yeah, there isn't really much to catch in the winter. Our biggest catches will be the stringfish and the spider crab, like I said. There isn't hardly any bugs to catch during the winter. Most of these bugs we caught at the island. Okay, we caught a pill bug and a centipede. We will need to... you know what? I'm gonna... I don't know if I'll do it in this part. It'll probably be best, though, because we already have the fewest, hardly any bugs. But sometime before I get out of winter, I am gonna need to change my game to a Sunday morning so I can get Joan. Because if we do that, we're gonna get... we'll be able to get turnips. And if we let them spoil, I think we'll be able to catch both an ant and a fly. So, yep. Doing that at some point. I think I caught a mole cricket, thankfully. Yes. I caught a dung beetle. Good. But I still haven't caught a wharf roach. Crap. Yeah, those things are a bit challenging to catch. They're easier at the island, so I'll probably just go to the island and catch one. Unless I can catch one here. Yeah, see, they always go in the water. I'll do some diving. We'll see if we can catch the red king crab and the scallop. And I believe an octopus. I don't believe we've caught that yet. Unfortunately, you can't go behind this annoying-ass barrier. But the bugs, or not the bugs, the creatures can. Ooh, a sweet shrimp. Yep, we needed that too. I think this is just a horsehair crab. We already caught one. Yeah, diving will be a lot easier in New Horizons. Now, the creatures are very fast, and it does take forever to catch the really fast ones sometimes, but we don't have to deal with the freaking jellyfish, creatures going behind the boundary point, or them just despawning. And we can check our stuff, you know, our pockets and our Nook phone, even when we're in the water, so diving does get a massive improvement in New Horizons. I am looking forward to doing a New Horizons challenge, but I figured I'd do this game first, because you know, it's older. That was a close one. It could have despawned. Alright, and an octopus. I don't know if we've caught an octopus yet. Or a lobster. Whoa, she almost came back up. Oh yeah, I guess we will need a little bit of money for turnips. So while we're diving, this will also be a good opportunity to make some money. Usually I'll just buy one stack of turnips, but I might want to buy more to increase the chances of an ant or a fly spawning, so yeah, what I'll do is I'll probably grab a few units and spread them all over town. But then I'll get rid of them once I do have both bugs. And I am going to need to pay a disposal fee because they'll be spoiled, so yeah, I will need some money. I mean, the disposal fee is pretty cheap, you know, when you want to have Reese take, you know, garbage or like spoiled turnips off your hands, but still, I don't want to be in a bind where I have insufficient funds, so. Oh, I thought that was my character. It's just a present. We don't need to worry about those in this challenge. But I will probably move around some houses off screen. I don't want to do it on screen, but off screen. I don't like cheating, like, you know, when I'm doing like a challenge, but like I said, I'm not going to be doing it for the challenge itself, just to get houses out of the way, so please forgive me, my viewers. Ooh, another fish we'll need to catch at some point is a coelacanth. They're personally my favorite. I don't know why scallops are so rare in this game. Spider crabs I get, you know, they're 6,000 bells. Scallops are only 1,000 bells, which is still a decent amount, but they shouldn't be that rare. I freaking hate the jellyfish in this game with a burning passion. Have I caught a pearl oyster yet? Okay, no. I am gonna keep it, because I think it is worth a fair amount. Stop. Just go. Stop being a wimp. Alright. Have I caught a sea bass yet? I have not. I don't think. My pockets are full, but whatever. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I took my fishing rod out, so it gave me a free space. Now, I've thought about something this morning. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and go to Sunday. We will have to go back to the morning because Joan is only there from 6 a.m. to noon, but... Oh! But the stringfish doesn't even go away until 9 a.m., so we can just change it to early in the morning and we'll still have a chance to catch it. Alright, okay. I'd be cooking. But yeah, I did think about something this morning. You know, and it's, you know, for basically the whole high school versus college debate. Now, I've never been to college, and I don't really know much about my brother's experience in college. And even so, he's done a considerable portion on it just online. But, you know, I've thought about how college is more personalized and allows for a more, you know, more flexible hours. And then high school, it's a lot more, you know, you don't have nearly as much control over that stuff. Now, in college, you still have to take a lot of the basic classes, unless you go to like a you know, a trade school, a technical school, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, I probably never will go to college, you know. I have different plans, you know, set up. You know, I have my books I want to write, you know, that program that I should be getting into in the next few months or so. And deep down, you know I probably don't have the mental capacity for college. But I can't help but still be curious about what it would be like, or what it would have been like college. Because I did enjoy school for the most part. You know, it was boring and frustrating at times, and I did wonder. Why we were learning all of this trivial stuff. Alright. Hopefully Joan shouldn't be too much of a pain to find. Alright. We do have to dig up a pitfall seed. I left the other one I had by the beach, because I don't want to fall in. Those things are annoying. But yeah, you know, I did enjoy school for the most part, but at the same time, you know, I do wish that, school had like a more personalized experience. Because we don't need all that stuff. I mean, yes, we do need some of it, especially like in the lower grades, but we get to high school and we learn all of this complex literature crap. And then, and like I said, in college, you do still have to learn that stuff, but at the same time, you have a more personalized experience. You have more flexible hours. Okay, we're gonna bury this at the corner of the town so we don't fall in and we can prevent them from spawning. Because, yeah, I think a lot of people much prefer college over high school due to having more flexible hours and more control over what classes you can take. I wish there was like a spot on the map that told you where exactly special visitors are. Or even just the villagers, because... Oh my god, I got myself started on a rant here, but... Villagers are frustrating as heck to track down in this game, and even in New Horizons, there are just so many places they can be. Oh, okay, good. And oh my goodness. Sometimes I spend like 20 minutes to an hour just trying to track down a villager in these games. Like, it's honestly ridiculous. And this was even before New Horizons came out. I was hoping we would get like some sort of villager tracker when, you know, in New Horizons when it came out, but we never did. Okay, so... Alright, so, like, you know, turnips are a bit so, turnips come, like, in, you know, batches of 10, and then, like, you know, another 10, you know, not another 10, but multiplied by 10 per pocket space. So, even though we only could afford 300 turnips, that only gives us, you know, 3, you know, stacks of turnips, because, you know, there's 100 stacks of 100 per stacks, so... But this should be good enough. But yeah, that's actually something I want to talk about in one of my books. You know, I don't know if I'm gonna follow through with any of this, but one book I would like to write and a topic I would love to explore is the school system. Why are children so apathetic? Why do students get burned out, you know? I want to explore all that. And I think a lot of it is due to, just inflexibility, not much control over what class. I mean, you can take you can select your classes in high school. You can do that. But you're still forced to take, certain classes. If anything, if we do need like a social studies credits and like an English credit, we should be able to just choose, classes that fall under those umbrellas. Like, for example, let's take English credits, for example. And I'll just use myself. Like, let's say I was still in high school and, I needed, like, English credits to graduate, which I had to take English all 4 years of high school. I should be able to select what type of English classes that I want. Like, instead of just a general English class, I should have had the choice to take something more specific, take more, select what branches of English that I wanted to take. Like, I'm more of a creative person than an analytical person. I want to be able, I love to write. That's no surprise at this point. I've talked about that for years now on this channel and on my previous ones, but I should, it would be nice for, like, and not just high schoolers, but just, even in, June, like, even, like, maybe even middle school to an extent. Now, I understand, like, maybe, like, a lot of the early, grades, kids are still figuring themselves out, they need a lot more guidance, and, they need a lot of the stuff they're learning, but at least in, like, high school, because that's when I realized that a lot of the stuff, I was learning got, very complex and irrelevant to my future. Yeah, stringfish are a lot more rare when you actually need to catch one. Usually, I'm just, I'm not really too worried about stringfish. But now, since I'm doing a challenge, I want to get it knocked out of the way. Actually, I want to test something out. Plus, it'll get Joan out of the way. If I time travel, will the turnips spoil? Because I know in, like, some games, they do spoil if you time travel, but in some games, I think you can time travel without them spoiling. I need to, I'm intending to let them spoil, because that's how I'm going to catch a fly or an ant, so I'll be fine with that. I just want to test it out. So let's go over to Monday. If not, then we'll just wait overtime. But yeah, like as I was saying, as you guys all know, I'm much more of a creative person than an analytical person. And, a lot of the stuff, and, high school is when, a lot of the stuff just started to not make sense. I excelled, in math and English in middle school, but it got a lot more complicated in high school. In English class, I want to, I like learning about spelling, grammar, punctuation, not stories that people have written like 500 years ago. Those were different times. There's different entertainment now, people speak differently now. Alright. Does time traveling ruin our turnips? Nope, they're still intact. Huh, interesting. I would have been perfectly fine with the spoiled turnips punishment. I mean, I feel bad for players that do time travel. and buy turnips, but you know, simultaneously, but it would have actually been convenient in this case. What we're gonna do is we'll push the, oh, no! Isabelle, please. I was trying to time travel. Sayara's here. I honestly get annoyed by Sayara. You know, I feel like she comes too frequently in my towns. Or island for New Horizons, and, like, I don't know. I just don't really like how she's executed in most of these games. You know, she's actually pretty fun in Wild World. But in City Folk, and in this game, and even in New Horizons, you know, she's just kind of, I don't know, but in City Folk, you had to give her old carpets and wallpapers in order to get something in return from her, and you know, you need to give her like 3 of whatever she asks you. You know, sometimes it'll be old wallpaper, like I said, or old carpet. You need 3, but you can only get them from other villagers. And, you know, usually I can only get like 1 or even like none. And then in this game, you know, she will give you a random wallpaper and carpet for your house, and, you know, that's kind of annoying. I rather just rely on other methods. Plus, you know, I have a very specific idea of what I want my new Leaf house to be like, so she's just kind of useless. I mean, yeah, it could be good for your catalog, but she doesn't have to screw up your house. She can just simply give you a wallpaper or a carpet. That would be better, in my opinion. And then in New Horizons, you can only get 1 type of carpet or wallpaper or small rug or medium rug or large rug. You know, she only sells 1 thing per category, so yeah. Alright. Let's see. Okay, yep. A week later. Yeah, we still have string fish in February, thankfully. I think February is the last month we can catch them in this game. Oh, Groundhog's Day. Ugh. Oh well. Okay, there we go. Jesus Christ. But yeah, back to the school discussion, you know. If it is required, like, by law or something for us to have, like, you know, basic general education credits, we should be able to select the classes that, you know, that we see fit for us. Alright, caught the fly. And now we caught the ant. Well, that was quicker than I expected. Nice. I may switch it back to 4 again so we can... Yeah, I'm definitely going to the next day. You can trip in this game, and it's really annoying. So let's go to the next day. And I am going to switch it back to the afternoon, so retail will be open, because I do want to get rid of my spoiled turnips now that I caught what I need. You know, I prefer just a normal day in Animal Crossing. I don't really want to have any holidays unless it really is that holiday in real life. But this is just a challenge, and I kind of, because it can restrict your game in some areas, and now that I'm tripping, I'm definitely gonna change it. But yeah, we should be able to select the classes we see fit. And social studies is another example. You know, I'm not a really big history person, you know. I've always found history to be really boring. I know people argue that we learn about it so people don't make the same mistakes, but people are gonna do screwed up stuff, whether they have history or not. It has nothing to do with the lack of knowledge about history, but, you know, but the person, like, just like, you know, how good of a, like, person someone is, or, like, you know, their sanity. So, I rather take, you know, classes that affect on, like, you know, on the why, you know, why does a person, what makes a person tick, you know, I'm sure you know where I'm getting at, you know, psychology, and then, you know, sociology, which is the study of, like, society as a whole. I believe those are the two differences. You know, I think that stuff is more important than just simply learning about things that happened years ago, in my opinion. I get the, intention behind it. But, you know, I do think it's more important to, you know, to discover the why, because why would, you know, why do we have people like, you know, I usually don't like to, you know, bring up heavy stuff on this channel, but for the sake of discussion, I will briefly bring it up. You know, why do we have people that, you know, started, like, you know, 9/11, you know, Osama bin Laden, and then, you know, like, the Holocaust, you know, because of Adolf Hitler, you know. We need to study the people, not just the events, you know. It's more important to study the people and, you know, figuring out ways we can do to help, you know, figuring out ways, you know. You know, figuring out the why, but you know what I mean, the reason why people do these horrible things. And it doesn't have to be, you know, like, serious events either. It can be just more everyday stuff, like, you know, why are people so serious and bitter? Why do people criticize others, like, you know, for little to no reason? You know, I think we should look within and, you know, help, you know, figure out, you know, the study behind people and about society itself. Now, if, you know, and then, you know, people who rather learn about the events, you know, they can learn that instead, but, you know, because we're all different. Everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses. you know, we're not going to all share the same strengths and weaknesses. You know, some people may, like me, may prefer to... Oh my goodness! You know, some people like me may prefer to learn, you know, like the psychology and sociology of social studies, while others may want to learn about the actual historical events, you know. We should create our school experience to better fit, you know, what is more important to us and what we're better at, you know, what we're strongest in. Some people can help by learning about the historical events. Others can help by learning about the study of human behavior. Oh yeah. Speaking of Phineas, I do want to collect the 3 gold badges from him at the end of the challenge, because he does show up when you achieve certain things. And when we catch all the fish, all the bugs, and all the deep sea creatures, we'll be able to collect a gold badge for each of the categories. But yeah, and math. Now, I'm actually pretty good at math. But it did get a bit complicated in high school. You know, I actually really enjoyed math for the most part, and, you know, before high school. Even in middle school, you know, I did pretty well. There were some lessons and some units that got confusing, but I think I did pretty good for the most part. In fact, I would consider math my best subject. Numbers just make more sense to me than a lot of the other stuff we learn in school, if that makes any sense. You can find, you know, easy ways to do math, you know. It's one of those subjects that you really have to, you know, think smarter, not just harder. And, you know, you can find ways to make it easier for you. And yeah, you know, math just makes the most sense. Huh. Okay, one thing I do want to get off my chest and I do want to talk about is, you know, I wish teachers were more tolerant to people with special needs. I know that's the discussion people don't want to have, but oh my god, that is something that needs to be, you know, that is something that, you know, that means a lot to me, because, you know, I have special needs, and, you know, I'm neurodivergent. And this caused me to feel misunderstood by my teachers and even my parents. For, like, this one teacher that I had, like, she would accuse me of having outbursts. And I never really had any outbursts, not like any, like, explicit, extreme ones. I would just say stuff at times, and it's not like it would be, like, school, you know, not school appropriate, and then my mom would find out because of an ARD, and then she would gripe at me, like, you know, it's honestly really frustrating. You know, I want to talk about that, and even in my book if I can. Matter of fact, I'll talk about it in my memoir a little bit. No, I won't be, like, mentioning any, like, specific names, but I will probably talk about how teachers would think I'm having outbursts or being rude when that was never my intention. And then, you know, that will be something. You know, I mentioned this in Metopia's, in my Metopia video a couple of nights ago, but ooh, nice. But, you know, I do intend to pass my memoir book down to my mom when I can. And I'm hoping she will. I'm hoping that will help bridge the gap between her and I. Or not bridge the gap, but kind of build a bridge between her and I. Because, you know, I want her, like, I feel like she doesn't really understand me. She can even be very, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, insensitive. Ooh, dismissive. There we go. Yeah, dismissive of my needs and my boundaries. And just, like, a bunch of other stuff about me. So, I'm hoping, like, if I, you know, take drastic measures, you know, by writing a book and then, like, with as much detail as possible, and I pass it down to her, maybe she'll start to really take me seriously, because she never really did. She would brush me off at times. Like, it was honestly very frustrating. Ooh, nice. New. Oh yeah, we are in a new month, so we will catch some new stuff. Okay, we're already at 52 minutes, so I probably will end this off in a few minutes. Sometimes I rather keep these shorter so they don't take forever to upload. And yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna, you know, point fingers in my book, but I may, you know, bring up, well, I don't know. I don't want to add salt into the wound, or, you know, open up any old wounds, you know, whatever the idiom is, but I do want to help my mom to understand her behavior in the past without explicitly pointing fingers. So, yeah. I am gonna have to figure out a way to talk her through all this stuff. Oh my god, go away. Frick off, thank you. Yeah, you can't catch jellyfish in this game. All they do is, they're only there to harass you, pretty much. And sometimes you get stung out of nowhere. There's like a jellyfish in front of you and you can't see it. It's very frustrating. I'm glad they got rid of it in New Horizons. Good riddance. I'm gonna see how my pockets look, because you can't check your pockets in this game, unfortunately, when you're in the water. Luckily, that is something else they improved on in New Horizons. Alright, we'll go diving for a few more minutes, then we'll end it off. We will need to catch a stringfish at one point, but I don't want to force it, because it'll just take forever to catch. It's going to be boring if I just spend so much time looking for it, so I'll catch it when I catch it. Man, I really want to catch a darn scallop and hopefully see Pascal, but when the game's ready, I guess. I'll probably end this off when we get to the 1 hour mark. Couple more minutes. Yeah, unfortunately, however, Pascal won't always show up when you catch a scallop. In New Horizons, I think it was at the 3.0 update, actually, back in January, they made it to where he'll show up. You know, pretty much every time you catch a scallop until you give it to him that day. But in this game, it is more so, real, you know, based on luck. Which is not good in my opinion. Alright, yeah, we're about an hour in, and I don't know how my pockets are looking, so... Okay, stop whining. Alright. Oh god, they are full. Yeah, alright. Alright, I'm gonna end it off right here, guys. Well, sell our stuff in the next episode, and hopefully we can catch some new stuff. And yep, that'll do it. Goodbye.